Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you're really doing well. Had a good week. Today we're going to look at something kind of different. You've all heard of Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain. Did you ever hear about his psychic dream? Let's take a look. One night in the late 1850s, Samuel Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, woke up clutching the sheets on his bed. His palms were sweaty, and his heart was pounding. It had been so real, he thought, so vivid. Had it really just been a dream, or did it actually happen? And if it was indeed a dream, it was more like a nightmare. In the late 1850s, before he was world-renowned author and humorist, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens worked as an apprentice riverboat pilot on the Pennsylvania. His younger brother Henry also worked on the vessel as a mud clerk, a hard and dreary job that was barely one step above indentured servitude. But Henry stuck with it, perhaps enticed by the possibility of a promotion to a superior position on the steamboat. While the ship was docked in St. Louis, Samuel stayed with his sister and brother-in-law, who lived in town, and Henry would often drop by to visit before returning to his shipboard duties. In May 1858, Henry was unusually solemn as he prepared to return to the Pennsylvania. It was not like him to be so somber. That night, Samuel saw images in a dream that was frighteningly realistic. He saw Henry lying in a coffin that was balanced on two chairs in the sitting room of their sister's house. Henry was wearing a suit of Samuel's, and in his hands, which were folded on his chest, he held a bouquet of white roses with one red rose in the middle. When Samuel awoke, he didn't know whether he had just had a dream or if the events were real. Was his brother dead? His mind spun. He decided that he must find out. Samuel leapt out of bed and charged into the sitting room where he had just seen the coffin during his dream. To his relief, the room was empty. Later that day, as he piloted the Pennsylvania down the Mississippi River to New Orleans, Samuel couldn't get the dream out of his mind. Unfortunately, on the trip downriver, Samuel got into an argument with the owner of the steamer and was relieved of his duties when the Pennsylvania reached New Orleans. However, Henry remained on board. Several days later, the Pennsylvania left on its return trip to St. Louis. As it approached Memphis, the boat's boiler exploded with a titanic roar. Dozens of people on board were killed and wounded. Samuel heard about the horrible accident and quickly made his way to Memphis. After he arrived, he searched high and low for his brother until he found him on a mattress in a warehouse that had been turned into a hospital to treat the accident victims. Henry had inhaled red-hot steam and was not expected to live. But somehow he fought back, and his condition slowly improved. One night the agonizing screams of those in the makeshift hospital were getting the best of Henry, so a physician ordered a small dose of morphine to help him sleep. But the person who administered the drug gave Henry too much. He overdosed and died before morning broke. The body of Henry Clemens was dressed in one of Samuel's suits, placed in a coffin, and displayed in a viewing room at the makeshift hospital. As Samuel was mourning near his brother's casket, a woman placed a bouquet of white roses with one red rose in the center in his brother's hand. Samuel was stunned. His chilling dream, or rather nightmare, had come true. Henry's coffin was sent back to his sister's house in St. Louis. Samuel arrived there just before the coffin was placed in the sitting room. There, two chairs sat spaced apart, waiting to receive the coffin. It was the final detail of Samuel's psychic dream to come true. Samuel Clemens was so deeply affected by his prophetic dream that foreshadowed his brother's death that 24 years later he joined the Society for Cyclical Research, a British group of supporters of paranormal studies. So there you go. There's the story of Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain's psychic dream. Have you ever heard that one before? That was a new one on me, but kind of interesting. Well, I see in my mind's eye a groaner coming on. We always have to have a groaner. Well, there was a gentleman who was an avid duck hunter, and he'd had numerous bird dogs over the years, and the last one he had served him well, but died at the ripe old age of 14, and he got a new dog, and he trained it, and he took it out for its first hunt. And some ducks went over, and the hunter shot a duck, and it fell into the lake. And his dog, on command, rushed to get the duck. But when the dog reached the water's edge, it hesitated. Then timidly walked across the water, picked up the duck before it sank, and brought it back to his master. Well, the hunter was just shocked. He couldn't believe what he'd just seen. He thought, no, I have to be imagining things. Well, a few minutes later, some more ducks went over, and the hunter shot another duck, and it, too, fell into the lake. And once again, the dog walked across the water, picked up the bird, and brought it back. Well, this continued for the next several days as the hunter went with his dog and shot the number of fowl he could, and every time the dog would walk on the water to fetch the bird. Well, the hunter was beside himself. This is just fantastic. This is just too good to be true. And he had a friend that was a braggart. Every time he tried to best this friend, the friend would one-up him. But he knew for sure this time he had him. There's no way he was going to outdo this. So he invited his friend to go duck hunting with him, and the two of them set out. And some ducks went over, and the hunter shot a duck and right into the lake. And he sent his dog to get it, and the dog walked across the water, picked up the bird and brought it back, and he barely brought it back to his master when the master's friend shot a bird, and it too landed in the lake. And the owner commanded, and the dog walked across the water, picked up the bird before it sank, and brought it back and dropped it at the guest's feet. And the owner of the dog, the hunter, turned to his friend and said, "Well, did you notice anything special? Anything spectacularly interesting about my dog?" And his friend said, "He can't swim." There you go. Hope you enjoyed today's groaner, and you'll have a good weekend, and we'll see you Tuesday for Tuesdays with the Pilgrim. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.